What do the games Fight for Life, Double Switch, and Crime Patrol 2 Drug Wars all have in common? Well, these three terrible games were all released in 1996, but they were not the year's worst games. At least, not according to Next Generation magazine, who gave all three of these games 2 stars out of 5. As crazy as it sounds, Next Generation gave 37 different games lower scores than Fight for Life. I'm talking about the dreaded 1 star. And today we're going to go through all of these reviews and read the meanest, nastiest, and snarkiest quotes from all 37 of these supposedly awful games. This is Next Generation's 1-star reviews, and these are the 37 worst reviewed games of 1996.
Only Sega Saturn has 3 32-bit processors.
Hey guys, that's our flight. We've got to go.
3 processors mean better gameplay.
Come on, you guys. Everyone's on board.
Sony PlayStation only has 1.
If you won't fly the plane, then I'll find someone who will.
Sega Saturn, now only $199 for unlimited action and the coolest games.
You hear me?
When you've got Sega Saturn, nothing else matters. Sega!
Alright, up first we have Arcade Classics on the Genesis. Arcade Classics' most obvious shortcoming is that it only contains 3 games. These titles could certainly be considered classics, but the versions included on this cartridge are far from the arcade versions most people remember. Ultimately, those who unwittingly go searching for fond, nostalgic remembrances of their youth in arcade classics are more likely to discover suppressed memories of childhood trauma instead. Number 2, BC Racers on the 3DO. With all the amazing racing games that are showing up on the PlayStation and Saturn, what could the 3DO do to compete? Ooh, hopefully BC Racers wasn't its attempt, because it's possibly one of the worst racing games we've played in a long time. 3 years ago, on 16-bit machines, BC Racers might have been a fine game. But if 3DO wants to be considered a next-generation machine, BC Racers is not the kind of game the system needs to release. If you're dying for a 3DO racer, then go with the Need for Speed, Road Rash. In fact, any other game would be better than this. Number 3, Catfight on PC. Catfight is just what you think it is, an all-female fighting game. Digitized women in scanty costumes duke it out with special moves, combos, and intense blocks. The designers at Phantom blow it at every turn, from the poor image quality to the ridiculously inane special effects and abysmal sound. It makes us wonder who should be pitied more. The people who spent good money on this tripe thinking it might be worthwhile, or the mental defectives who put it all together and thought, this is good, people will buy it. In fact, it's tempting to believe that Catfight was designed to be a snaky, militant feminist ploy, since it serves as a perfect punishment for the sexist males who might buy it. Number 4, Cutthroat Island on the Genesis. Cutthroat Island doesn't suffer from any one blatant shortcoming. Instead, it suffers from a lack of anything that sets it apart from an action game from 3 years ago. There's the final fight gameplay, the 8-bit NES quality graphics, and finally the obligatory minecart level that altogether makes Cutthroat Island one of the most generic titles available. If there was a formula for making poor action games, and we're starting to believe there is, Cutthroat Island would be the template. Number 5, Cyberspeed on PC. If you want a game that requires a mainframe computer to run smoothly, has about as much control as a 747 with no steering yoke, and looks as good as Roseanne in a bikini, this is it. This is supposed to be racing in the future, but it's more like the future of torture. The graphics are drab, and with only a few exceptions, the tracks are uninspired. If you want a racing sim, then check out Whiplash and avoid Cyberspeed like, well, Roseanne in a bikini. Number 6, DeathKeep on PC. Every now and then, a title comes from a reputable publisher of fine entertainment software that is so horrendous, so inane, that it makes you wonder who approves a product like this for retail. Either that person has a terribly strange sense of fun, or they were off to the restroom for a long time while DeathKeep slipped by. At least this can be said for it. If, for some inexplicable reason, a player finds the game a joy to play, at least they'll have 25 dungeons, each with 8 levels to explore. Still, no matter how much crap you throw on the pile, it's still gonna stink. Number 7. Star Trek Deep Space Nine Harbinger. Sometimes when you expect a product to be entertaining and it's not, it's actually worse than if you had no expectations at all. That's exactly the emotion Deep Space Nine Harbinger evokes. With the actors who portray the characters on the television show voice acting in some incredibly rendered environments and characters, what could go wrong? Well, just about everything. The sad thing is that this could have been a great game. With a little thought, a bit of coherency, and a storyline that didn't seem so contrived, it could have been a real winner. As it is, the actors should have spent their time on another TV episode. Number 8. Frankenstein Through the Eyes of the Monster on PC. Imagine, if you will, a world where Tim Curry is Mary Shelley's maniacal, demented Dr. Frankenstein. Now, imagine waking up as a monster created for no other reason than scientific curiosity. If you can do that, then you've already had more fun than you would have if you played Frankenstein Through the Eyes of the Monster. The end result is a game that makes about as much sense as bathing in sewage. Number 9. Fury Cubed on PC. It looks like Terminal Velocity, plays like Terminal Velocity, but it's not Terminal Velocity. It's Fury Cubed. You would think that a company who could create a revolution in PC operating systems would be able to create an original game to run under it. Instead, we get a game that's already been made under a different name. If you're looking for a game to demonstrate your hot new operating system, miss this one. Number 10. In the Hunt on PlayStation. This Japanese release, an odd shoot-'em-up, features a zaftig little submarine that, in spite of the game's childlike atmosphere, moves in a way that's affected by realistic physics. That is to say that the damn thing is so slow that you'll feel like you're swimming through Bill Cosby's favorite Jell-O brand gelatin with a pair of fins. While very young gamers might enjoy the light show, the lethargic tempo and lack of originality are sure to put anyone over the age of 10 to sleep. Number 11. Jupiter Strike on PlayStation. Acclaim has reached an exclusive deal with the financially sagging Taito to distribute its products here in the United States. Based on the first game to be picked up through that deal, let's just hope that Acclaim didn't shell out too much money. It may be worth pointing out that if a company is in trouble, there's probably a reason for it. Stay away, don't add their problems to your own. Number 12. Killing Zone on PlayStation. If Tekken 2 is the finest 3D brawler PlayStation has ever seen, Killing Zone is trying its darndest to be the one at the bottom of the barrel. The animation is among the worst you've ever seen, the play control can charitably be called particular, and the camera angles jump around in a way that's supposed to be dynamic, but only serves to be totally confusing. The heartbreak of it all is that on paper, Killing Zone could have been a standout. Its characters are all classic monsters, either from movies or mythology, and the original plan was to make the game dark and gory as hell. However, the final version is almost totally bloodless, and most of the characters just wind up looking dull or stupid, not scary at all. Overall, a better title would have been Fright for Life. Number 13. Manic Karts on PC. In a market overrun by arcade racing games, it's strange to come across a racing title that so obviously can't compare. Yet Manic Media Productions seems to think that it would be a good idea to make one without the elements that made its previous racer, Supercross, entertaining. Like play control, inventive tracks, stylish gameplay, You know, the fun stuff. Avoid it at all costs.
You've heard all about the many fabled wonders of the information superhighway. With Windows 95, it's easy to get on it. Start connecting. Start Windows 95.
And we're back with number 14, Metal Jacket on PlayStation. Offering some interesting options like the ability to fight in snow at different times of day or night, Metal Jacket is another Fighting Robot Japan release. The computer-controlled combatants are so speedy, it's nearly impossible for a mere human to keep up. Targeting and movement are confusing as well, which doesn't help, and the missions all appear to be search and destroy affairs. In other words, it's substandard however you look at it. Number 15, Miner's Revenge in the arcade. And we thought shooters couldn't get any simpler. With video games like Miner's Revenge, laser gun shooters like Zombie Raid are deep, dark, complex, even metaphysical in comparison. You can't reload, you don't control the cart, each level is nearly identical, you could easily drop your gun, walk away, and forget the game even existed. There's more interaction in watching Saturday morning cartoons than in this dud. Number 16, Pool Champion on PC. Pool Champion mixes the traditional pool sim with a graphic adventure of sorts. As a fledgling pool player, you travel from sleazy pool halls to the elitist world of pro tournaments. And that's all fine and good, and there were a couple of console games a few years back that tried the same thing. The trouble here is the actual pool playing pretty much sucks. If you're looking for a graphic adventure, then buy an adventure. If you're looking for a pool sim, you're better off checking out Interplay's Virtual Pool. Number 17, Pulstar on Neo Geo. In a time when shooters have ceased to advance beyond their 80s innovations, Pulstar hits the shelves as if to reinforce the genre's nearing death. The game looks and plays pretty much like Atari's Defender, with a couple of differences. The graphics are improved, the game is slower, and the gameplay is just not as fun. If it weren't for the molasses-like pace of the game, then Pulstar could have been another generic shooter. Instead, it's even worse. Number 18, Quinn, Tomb of the Middle Kingdom on PC. We've seen it all before. Thrust into a photorealistic world, the player wanders through high-resolution artwork solving puzzles. Myst has procreated once again, asexually butting off another offspring with little more interest than the others, although at least in Quinn you can learn a few things. It's not so bad for those into ancient Chinese mythology, but if you're looking for an actual game to play, it's damn dull stuff. Number 19, Revolution X on both the Genesis and Super Nintendo. As an arcade game, Revolution X was nothing more than a light gun game with Aerosmith in it. As a home game, it's even worse, with laughable graphics, indistinguishable digitized voices, and awful music. The motion captured enemies lack any life, and the backgrounds are even worse than ugly. This game is for the most die-hard of Aerosmith fans only. And in case you're wondering, no, the girl that's always in Aerosmith's videos is not in this game. Number 20, SkyBorg, Into the Vortex on PC. SkyBorg is an example of everything that can go wrong when a computer game is based on a series of collectible cards rather than a solid game concept. The game runs under Windows, but it's not optimized for Windows 95. You have to do a lot of clicking to travel from place to place, which grows old fast. Even though the game looks great, it moves about as quick as a pregnant whale, and after only a few hours of going around in circles, it's not going to hold much interest. Number 21, Space Bucks on PC. With the exception of a gazillionaire, there are no real good space-based trading sims on the market. Counting Space Bucks, well, there's still nothing. There's no cutthroat strategy for undermining the competition's prices, no sabotage of trading routes, no space battles, not even the occasional price war. If you're yearning for a science fiction trading sim, play High Seas Trader while watching the Star Wars trilogy. Number 22, Space Dude on PC. This particular game translates into a lot of silly flying sequences where you have to move the Space Dude using the keyboard to avoid a whole slew of projectiles from missiles to sharks. Not bad so far, right? There is a tiny bit of strategy involved, but that's not enough to even hope to compensate for the complete lack of playability. And then it gets worse. There's no save feature. In a move that harkens back to the dawn of gaming, you simply have to start from the beginning every single time. It's possible that some folks might find the cartoon animation mildly entertaining and get a chuckle out of Space Dude's yell. But it gets old faster than whole milk left to sit on the radiator and is nearly as nauseating. Number 23, Spawn on the Super Nintendo. Based on a popular comic book character, Spawn is such an obvious attempt to capitalize on name recognition that you'll be insulted just upon seeing it. Suffering from problems with just about everything, a lack of speed, poor play control, the lousy graphics. This completely generic attempt at a video game is less enjoyable than a skin rash. Avoid it at all costs. Number 24, Spot Goes to Hollywood on PlayStation. The mascot in question is the Cool Spot of 7-Up fame, the nondescript product representative second only to Jack in the Box's bubble-headed Jack in dullness. This is, of all things, a 32-bit port of the 16-bit title that annoyed us last year with no significant upgrades or extras. To add to the list of grievances, since Spot is in an isometric view and mostly moves in diagonal directions, control is a real pain, and the ability to switch the control to diagonal settings just makes it more confusing. Any 10-year-old is bound to throw down the controller in disgust after, say, the upteenth failure maneuvering Spot across a narrow rope bridge. Go back to pushing pop, kid. Number 25, Star Trek Klingon on PC. Whether this is a game or a movie, Star Trek Klingon isn't much fun. Klingon is actually a little more than a video disc that makes you click the mouse every now and then to see more movie. Of course, if you click the wrong thing, you have to see parts of the movie you've already seen again. When you get to the end, you'll realize that not only have you wasted the past 2 hours, but that for roughly 1/10 of the cost, you could have had more fun renting Generations again.
For the first time in history, you have the chance to become a part of the most feared race in the galaxy.
Come. It is time.
To become a Klingon warrior.
To my son, who has chosen to follow the path of his grandfathers.
In an amazing new CD-ROM game, Star Trek Klingon. This is no ordinary game. It's 90 minutes of full screen, full motion, interactive action with you in control.
Are you ready?
And your guide is the head of the Klingon High Council, Gowron himself.
You have a duty to perform. Do it.
You learn to think like a Klingon.
Will you come? Yes.
With your Klingon dagger,
No.
you make all the critical choices.
Indecision is death. You are still thinking like a human.
Starring Robert O'Reilly of The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine.
Today, you are a warrior.
Star Trek Klingon. Only on CD-ROM.
And we're back with number 26, Striker 96 on the Saturn. The idea behind Striker was to make a soccer game that was pure arcade fun. The end result, a game totally lacking in substance and style. The graphics aren't even on par with many 16-bit games, and the control is extremely frustrating. Player animation is stiff, and controlling the ball down the pitch lacks any sort of strategy or set of skills. Frankly, there are far too many good soccer games on store shelves to think about Striker as an option. Number 27, Super Stardust 96 on PC. There's a depressingly small number of good 2D shooters on PC, and Super Stardust 96 is a perfect example of why. As soon as the game starts, only one word pops to mind: asteroids. That's exactly what this game is, a complicated version of asteroids. To be fair, there are a few different styles of gameplay. However, that's still not enough to make up for the overwhelming lack of originality. Ultimately, it's a sad attempt to bring back a type of game that's been dead for a very long time. Number 28, Supercross 3D on Jaguar. While the idea seems likely enough to be entertaining, Supercross 3D manages to eliminate most of the raw potential of this fabulous sport. From the very opening seconds of the first practice round, the first thing that you're going to notice is the extremely choppy delivery and the thoroughly mediocre look. The introduction of other racers makes matters worse, and the confusing perspective and severe slowdown problems seal the lid on the coffin. Number 29, TekWar on PC. Never mind the fact that this game is based on William Shatner's book and television series TekWar. Forget the fact that William Shatner stars in the grainy, full-motion video cutscenes interspersed throughout the game, and ignore the storyline direct from the television show. And finally, after blocking out all of this nonsense, if you whittle down to the core of this game, you get an abhorrent duplicate of Doom. Only fanatical fans of TekWar or Bill Shatner should get this one, and even they probably won't like it. Number 30, 3D Tetris on Virtual Boy. There was a time when Game Boys flew off the shelves into the hands of adults who were addicted to the greatest puzzle game of all time. The hallowed name Tetris was synonymous with portable gaming excellence. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. If Nintendo is hoping for lightning to strike twice, it's in for quite a disappointment. Tetris 3D epitomizes the problem inherent with the Virtual Boy itself. The simple yet challenging gameplay is almost entirely gone. What remains is an ill-conceived mutation that fails to compare even remotely to the original. Ultimately, the player now ends up spending more time fighting with the game's design flaws than playing or enjoying it. It's what you might call baffling. Number 31, The Dame Was Loaded on PC. In a market where full-motion video is becoming as common as it is tedious, finding a title that gives new life to an overdone medium is like finding a gem on a mountain of coal. Unfortunately, The Dame Was Loaded is anthracite to the core. As a game, it isn't much of a challenge, and there's no real reward. Dedicated players can finish it in a few sittings, as it's about as exciting to play as its cheesy or as its Maltese Falcon story is to experience. That is to say, it's no fun at all. Number 32, Time Killers on the Genesis. It's rare that a game is released which lacks any redeeming qualities whatsoever. But with Time Killers, a disease has been released on the world that should serve as a warning for future generations to come. Harsh words? It takes 10 seconds of play to convince even the most casual gamer that Time Killers is easily the worst example of a 2D fighting game in history. Is there anything that elevates Time Killers? Well, there are moves for bloody decapitations, but rest assured, any amusement derived from macabre humor will soon be drowned in the nightmarish hell of the gameplay. After 10 seconds, you might well wish somebody would rip your own head off, just to kill the pain. Number 33, Venom and Spider-Man, Separation Anxiety on PC. Windows 95 is opening doors to the generation of 16-bit platform gaming titles. If these are the games that we're going to see, however, perhaps it wasn't such a good idea after all. This is an arcade bash fest with little in the way of intricacy and depth possible in a PC game. It's a great port of an action game, and it might be welcomed by players eager to try out what they've been missing on the Super Nintendo. But nowadays, these games are a dime a dozen in cartridge form. Number 34, Vertical Force on Virtual Boy. The back of the Vertical Force box claims actual gameplay in 3D, but the truth is far less dramatic. The definition of 3D employed in this overhead shooter is one in which two separate planes of gameplay coexist, all within a completely confusing environment of mindless enemy ships and constant red gunfire. If this were a regular game, then it may have been a far less troublesome ordeal, but it's not. Beyond the very unsuccessful 3D elements in Vertical Force, this game is totally uninspired. Number 35, Viewpoint on PlayStation. For the record, this was the most heralded shooter to ever hit the Neo Geo. While it's true, the nearly 100% pre-rendered graphics look just great and the techno soundtrack has a catchy, if languid beat. However, the conversion is slowly paced, control is sluggish, and the difficulty level is off the scale, even on the easy mode. It's one of those bizarre games almost deliberately designed as the antithesis of fun. We have no idea what kind of sadist converted this. But unless you're also an equally extreme masochist, give it a wide berth. Number 36, VR Troopers on Genesis. Trying to cash in on the Power Rangers success, VR Troopers is a campy children's show, and everybody knows how great those games turn out, right? Well, this game is exceptionally generic, with some real simplistic fighting and nothing that makes it worth owning. Well, unless you're a huge fan of the show. And finally, number 37, X-Perts on the Genesis. Every now and then, a game comes along that is not simply bad, but intrinsically insulting. The fact that Sega is asking an unsuspecting public to fork over $70 for the painful gaming experience that is X-Perts elevates the game, or perhaps denigrates would be a better term, from the insulting level to being a crime against humanity. X-Perts is the ultimate argument for letting these 16-bit systems die rather than prolonging the pain.
America's #1 comic book thanks to you. So I started this company to make the toys that you asked for.
Spawn, Violator.
I hear the competition's flying around. They could be any place.
They're cool, awesome.
Tremor, Overkill, Medieval Spawn,
And they come with comics.
Nice toys, kids.
Nice try, guys.
Spawn from Todd Toys. We're out to plaster the competition.
Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Next Generation's 1-Star Reviews. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we're going to be posting new episodes every Monday. We still have 5 more episodes to go through, so make sure and come back next week for our look at 1997. Now, here's the question I have for you. What was Next Generation's meanest, nastiest, and snarkiest review from 1996? Oh boy, there's some really good ones here to choose from. I like the image of time killers being a disease and the whole bathing in sewage water thing that was from another one of the games. I forget which one. Oh, and then there's Roseanne. Oh boy. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we have a huge week in store for you, including a review of Hourglass and a new episode of the Nintendo Switch Online Review Crew. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,